Hello and welcome to Bonsai with Tom. I have an exciting episode for you today. We're going to prune two of my favorite dwarf jade, my river jade, which you see here, and then another jade I call Caribbean blue. They're looking good. They just need some kind of light pruning. But before I do that, I want to do an update and sort of a mini review. So let's do that. Not really an update. These are just a couple of plants I keep outside on my doorstep in the front of my house. This is an aloe. And look at these beautiful flowers it gets. They're kind of like a reddish orange, and I just don't do anything to this thing. I barely feed it. It sits out there in the sun, and it just really, really pays off with these pretty flowers. And here's another one. I'm not sure what this is called, but I guess these beautiful red tips. And now it's having babies, pups, I guess they're probably called, in the side. And yeah, so it's just a beautiful little couple of succulents that I have that I don't really do much with, but I really, really enjoy. Another thing I've been immensely enjoying lately is my Haws mini watering can, which you see here. It has a tiny, very fine rose. I mentioned this on the channel before, and I wanted to show you a bit about how it works. And I'll put a link to it at Amazon. You can get these, I don't know, 23, 24 bucks. If you want more interesting colors, they're harder to find. But I am just loving how perfect this is for watering my indoor bonsai. I much prefer it now compared to my previous system, which was a sprayer. And let me show you how it works. So it doesn't hold a lot of water, but it really lasts quite a while. And it has this very fine spray, which is perfect for watering, small trees, which is mostly what I have because, it really, a lot of water kind of comes out quickly. So you're kind of saturating the soil, but not so much that it's going all over the place. And it allows you to keep it really neat. And, it lasts a long time, like, because it's such a fine spray. Typically I can do all the watering I need to do on both of my indoor shelves, and I only have to refill it once. So I'm really, really happy with this. I don't know. I'm sad I haven't known about it longer, but it's great. And I have a 5 gallon watering bucket that I just have sitting beside my shelves, and I just kind of dip this in there and fill it up, in a second or two, and I'm watering some more. And, I usually put a little bit of fertilizer in there and mix it in. But yeah, if you have indoor bonsai to water, I really recommend this. Here's how it works on one that's a little bigger. You can see the spray is, I think this is a maybe 5.5, 6 inch pot. And it's just perfect for this, like you really, it's fun. I feel like I'm watering outdoor bonsai, and it just does a great job. And can't recommend it enough. It's a Haws mini watering can. Okay, so on to the pruning. This is my river jade. I call it that because if you look at the base of the trunk, it's just really nice. And I'm just gonna start by just lopping off the stuff that's clearly too long. And I'm gonna thin it out, but not dramatically. Basically, I just want to get it back to shape. Um, Kind of a profile prune, where I'm basically just going in and restoring the tree to its desired shape, kind of at a high level. But I'm not going in and pruning each branch and each leaf and really, getting it down. Normally when I prune, I do that where I'm just trying to take off as much as I can, and sometimes a little bit more. But in this case, I want to enjoy this. It's kind of at the peak of health. It looks really good. And, so I am just going to thin it out and, enjoy it. So as you can see, I'm just cutting back the long stuff. And, it's what I often do in the channel. I'm just kind of taking it back to, usually the first set of leaves, and then you get branching from there. And then, over time, things get too thick, or, it's kind of evolving in a direction you don't want. You might cut off a branch. I think if you watch the playlist for this tree, I'll put a link in the details. You can see where I've done that a lot. This one is, well, my memory's failing me. I can't remember the exact name of of this variety, but it's the kind that grows down. Um, well, at least that's what I think. Although, I mean, you can look at it, certainly there's a lot of growth. It's not growing down, but overall, compared to many of my other dwarf jade, this one really, really likes to grow down. So the new branches will come out. Not so much this time, but in general, they're like going really low. And if you review some of the other videos of the work I've done on this for, I guess, 2 years now, yeah, you can see it's a constant battle to sort of deal with getting the tree to grow how I want it to grow rather than down. I think it's called Procumbens Nana, maybe something. I think that seems to ring a bell. But yeah, I've removed lower branches because usually what happens is, um, it wants to grow thick stuff down closer to what would be the ground, and so I've cut that off over time. And like any bonsai, it's constantly evolving and changing, and that it never really stays looking exactly the same for any particularly long period of time. You know, Usually every 6 weeks, it can change a fair amount. So I'm going to come in here and really some of this low growth. I One of the things I like to do with my tree, some folks just like a mass of green, like where it's just like I always say it looks like dragon scales because these leaves are so small and they do resemble like little scales to me. And when you have them so tightly packed in, um, it can really just be a solid form. And some trees do grow like that. But what I like to do is I want to see some air in there. I think it helps. Like what I'm doing here, just taking usually the leaves that are growing down and just creating some space between each branch and each pad. And I think it helps a few ways. It's healthier because you get some air able to blow in there, and you can see insects or other problems, and it prevents kind of some of those inner leaves from dying because the sunlight can get to them. But mostly why I do it is I think it just looks way more natural. Like if you look at a large full-size tree, by creating these layers, which I'm going to do somewhat here, but not a ton, you really are giving the tree a much more, I don't know, detailed, refined look, and there's just a lot more to see, and I think it gives it a lot more, I don't know, texture for the lack of a better term, and depth, and makes it look more three-dimensional and interesting and convincing. So anyway, that's why I do it. And so, when you have a tree like this that's very healthy and robust, it really makes a lot of sense to do that because I have an abundance of leaves. I don't need all these, and in fact, removing a great number of them actually makes the tree, uh, more convincing as a tree. And the other side of that, with good care, this variety, Dwarf Jade, Portulacaria afra, Bonsai, they really like to grow leaves. So, by doing this, I'm really creating more space for more leaves and smaller leaves. And so I guess maybe I'm kind of leaning into kind of on the spot, creating a thought for the day here, and that is, like, spend some time doing some detailed pruning on your trees because it really does pay off, and you get, finer and finer development, with branches, and like in this case, with this species of tree, you can really increase the density, but decrease the size of your leaves, which, all together, makes it a bit more convincing. So yeah, I'm sort of just thinning it out here and applying those principles I've been talking about, to try to just kind of thin it out and make it a little more. I always say skeletal. I know I don't know, some folks in the comments were, um, I don't know, questioning my use of that word, but I guess what I mean to say is I want it to be, um, more abstract and really give you the impression um, of a larger tree without being kind of an overly thick ball of foliage. I guess that's what I mean when I say skeletal, right? I want to see the bones of the tree. I want to see the trunk. I want to see the branches. You can see like this is too thick. So I want to create some space over here so I can really see this branch, but also the branch below it, and I want some space in there. I think I've said many times. I think maybe it was John Naka that initially said it. You want to imagine like little birds being able to fly around here and fly into branches and have a three-dimensional tree. This is another tip. Sometimes I just take my fingers in here, especially when you're removing the lower leaves. You can quickly just kind of reach in there because you can feel them under there. It's kind of hard to see them and then cut them with leaves, but you can rip them off pretty quickly by just kind of feeling them under that branch and nipping them off. And thinning that out helps. Like in this case, you can see more of the stuff that's too long and create more space. So that's just another technique. I haven't used it on. I mean, it's mostly I use it on these succulents because it's so easy to pull the leaves off and they're soft and you have so many. And so yeah, it's just a quick way to clean that up pretty fast, and they just come right off. And you can even eat them if you want. They're quite tasty, kind of like a badly seasoned pickle, I would say. So this one is just about done. Let's take a look at it. I kind of like this little pot. It's just a very inexpensive pot. Look at this trunk. It's not perfect, but I really like how it comes down to the ground, and it really gives the impression of an old tree. And I like, yeah, to me it looks like something that has been sort of washed away a bit, near a river. You get flooding and rain, and it kind of washes the mud away, so you see a bit below the roots, and I just really like it. And I think we've done a great job pruning it, and that's pretty much a wrap for this one. And the second tree I want to look at, this is I call Caribbean Blue, and it's the same kind of thing. It's like, it's not horribly overgrown. I just love this pot. Look at that thing. And it's also the same variety. As a matter of fact, I can't remember exactly, but I think this may have been the top of the tree we were just looking at. So same thing. I'm just going to come in here and nip it off. You can see I've got some long growth here where, some of these shoots have just gone. The internodes are too long. And, this tree is kind of, it's the size I basically want it. So I'm really just trying to maintain the shape. And of course, over time, I won't be able to do that. It will continue to get bigger, and then I'll have to shorten branches and kind of maybe reset it. But for now, I just want to prune back all this mass of just beautifully healthy foliage and see where we end up. And it's, I want to talk a little bit about this pot. This is just a beautiful pot. I can't remember the maker now, but he has a very distinct chop. And I went through a phase after I first discovered his pots. I just went a little crazy and bought like a bunch of them. And so you'll see more of them on the channel as we go. But I really like the style. Like he does, different kinds of glazes. But like this, I mean, if you look at the blue, to me it looks like if you look at the ocean where you've got a little bit of waves, not choppy, but you can sort of see that white froth. Just a very kind of colorful, but at the same time natural looking pot, which I think is tough to pull off. And I do kind of like, most of my trees are really tiny, so I have a mix of pots, but I like some spicy pots with a punch of color. I think it makes it a little more interesting, and because they're so small, I think you can really get away with it with these smaller trees rather than a larger tree where such a vibrant pot just kind of I don't know. It's a little too garish, actually. It's sort of really just to me kind of overwhelms the whole thing. But on a small scale, it's just fabulous. So I'm really coming in here now and, just sort of, like I said on the previous tree, kind of profile pruning, where I'm just trying to give the angle I want and create a nice triangle and just get this thing back to its shape, paying special attention to the top because they grow like crazy up there. And, I sort of start out by getting rid of the rough stuff, and now I'm kind of really more defining the profile more and ripping off these leaves on the bottom to create space between the branches, the pads. And, along the way, as you get closer and closer to that, completing that process, you'll see branches that just don't work anymore, and you have an opportunity to remove them. I think I'm going to collect these leaves and put them in my salad, which I don't often do, but once in a while. Um, I don't particularly like eating them on their own, but they are actually pretty good with the salad mixed in with some lettuce and a nice. I usually go with balsamic dressing, but sometimes just straight up seasoned rice wine or rice vinegar. So yeah, give it a whirl. I promise you might be pleasantly surprised. Obviously, if you use any kind of insecticides on your trees, you know, maybe don't eat those, or at least read up about it before you do. So this tree is kind of interesting. It's definitely one of these ones where it basically has just a very uh, basic, right, back, left, top structure to it. And so when I prune it, um, it's going to look a little bare because I tend to take off more than I really need to. Because if you don't, like, you're just constantly pruning it. And so I'm kind of looking at the overall shape, and I don't like this stuff hanging down here. I'm just going to take it off because it's sort of distracting, and I want sort of a difference in height of my branches, and that helped a bit. But let me see. Just going to take some of this stuff back and try to thin it out. And I guess what I want to say about this tree, it really does lose a lot of its charm when I do a lot of pruning on it, because it goes from like an overall very filled in triangular shape, yeah, to something less than that, right? Because I kind of want to get it back to its basics, and I want to keep it in this pot, so I have to keep it small, so I keep cutting it back, and then it grows, and then I make choices about the bigger branches I want to keep, and that's kind of how you slowly evolve the tree. And I think I've been having really good luck with this Akadama soil I've been using. Initially, I was kind of questioning it because it sort of the trees seem to grow slower. In that, I mean, obviously it's a soil that you often use, just getting rid of some of these lower leaves. This is another technique: just pick up the branch and cut off stuff that's down there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is often used in Japan for trees that are established, right? Because you don't want them growing too fast because they more quickly get out of shape. Um, so it's kind of the intent of the soil, and I found some on. It's actually in the Facebook group I've mentioned a few times on the channel. I think it's the Portulacaria Afra Study. Oh no, that's a different channel. That is a good channel, but it's just the 99-cent bonsai, and there's an individual that sells a pretty good Shohin mix with that's like half Akadama. And anyway, so what I wanted to say about that is that in the few trees that I've planted in that, they do grow slower, but they also grow. It's like a tighter growth, and yet they're extremely healthy looking and robust. And so I think when I next repot this little fella, I am going to put it in that mix to kind of slow it down a bit, so I don't have to prune it as often. And when I get it to its perfect shape, I can enjoy it like that longer. Because they have to grow or they die. That's basically a rule of kind of all plants. And this does, I mean, the trunk gets noticeably thicker every single season. Um, and I'm fine. I mean, I'm okay with that. I find it very charming. In fact, it's something that I really like about jades. They seem to do that regardless of their container size. I mean, obviously, if you let them go crazy, they will grow faster. But even in a very restricted environment like this, they thicken up very nicely, much more than other varieties of trees. And so I'm going to clean it up a bit. Like I said, I didn't want to take too much off of it, and we'll see where it's going to go. But like I said, I think in the future, when I repot this guy, maybe soon, because I don't think I've ever repotted this tree. I want to raise it up a little bit, have kind of more of a mound, and then try soil that will kind of slow it down a bit. But I think that's about a wrap for this tree. I'm gonna spin it around a little more. I still would like to create more differentiation on this branch here, and the one to the right. You can see the right one is kind of like extending out further, which I kind of like. You sort of want an asymmetric triangle. And so I may, that'll really be my main kind of beefy branch on the right. And this one on the left, the stuff that's hanging down, I may take it off. But I'm not going to do it now. I think I've cut quite a bit off already. But I think it's a dramatic improvement. I could thin it out more, but I'm going to let it go for now. And yeah, that's our little mini victory tour. And yeah, see if I kind of raise this up. See if I just cover that up. I think that's quite a dramatic improvement, isn't it? Yeah, to me it's kind of neat to have a branch coming down like that there, but I'm just finding it very sort of distracting. I was trying to develop that thing, but it's coming off because I just don't like it. And I think it will look much better without it. Yeah, that's great because now, I definitely have the differences in the pads and that is fantastic. And with that, it's a wrap for today. I really enjoy making this video and I am so impressed that people watch it and comment. So I want to thank you so much for that. And that's a wrap for today. And I want to thank you for watching. And I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.